Hello, everybody. In this short conversation, we will talk about Saite, which we will hear soon what it is. This is Daniel, and we will be talking with Jon Anthony, the author of Saite. Hello, Jon.
Hi, Daniel.
Hey. And so, please, Jon, would you tell us what Saite is?
Okay, so you can think of it as an interactive development environment for data exploration and visualization. That's kind of sort of what it is. It's built using self-hosted Clojure script and Clojure and several other things, CodeMirror, MathJax for LaTex, and a lot of things. This is how you can grab it and install and run it. So I'm just let you take a look at that for a few seconds. And if you have questions on this stuff, we can discuss it over on the Sharp Saite Dev channel of Zulip. That's there, and you can ask me questions. Once you run this thing and go to localhost 3000, this is what you'll see to start with. This is what it comes up looking like. And then you can upload a document. In particular, I have more things in my sessions than you will see in your default installation, but you will have a Scicloj, and you will have this Saite overview, which is what we were looking at. And you could load that up. And you will see when you load that up, you'll be back in this document here, where you can then go through these tabs, which sort of discuss a bit what it is. The install and run tab. There's a simple example of how you can go through, starting with a Vega Lite specification, turning it into an Eden specification, and then...
Jon, could I ask a little more about what Vega Lite is?
Yes, so Vega Lite is a interactive grammar of graphics produced by the folks at the Interactive Data Lab at University of Washington, and it's a really cool thing. You can go to their website. There's tons of information on this thing, really good documentation. There's these examples. In fact, the example that we were just kind of looking at started out from this little Vega Lite JSON specification. And there's, as you can see, there's boatloads more. So that is basically this little bit here. You can take this and convert it into Eden and then do visualizations with it. We define this chart really quickly. Maybe do I guess I need to do the data source just so we have a quick example here. So now I can visualize this and say I want it in a new chart, a new tab called Charts. And I can just execute this. We'll see we got a new tab, Charts, with this simple little graphic. I'm going to delete this because we don't need it. And we'll go back to the simple example. And we can do a little bit more than that, where we can render it in the body right here. And this body, these things can have LaTex and markdown surrounding this, as discussed in this tab, which kind of lays out what these idea of a picture frame is, which are the elements in these tab bodies. And you can see how this examples kind of work in terms of the various versions of these top, right, left, and bottom panels and visualizations. The other thing is that in any of these tabs, you can open the main editor that created them and walk through the code, kind of and mess with it as far as that goes. And you can close them back up. And there's a tab that goes over templates. And templates, as discussed, are part of Hanami. And there's an entire thing about how templates are, description in there, how they work, the basic idea of them, and how you can create visualization abstractions using these things.
So templates, can I ask, is it a way to create Vega Lite specifications?
Yeah, they're more general than that, but you can use, the idea is that you can have a much more trim specification in terms of a template that then gets expanded via recursive transformation of all of the substitution keys in the thing to produce a full Vega Lite or Vega specification. It works on Vega or Vega Lite.
But
in
actually
fact,
any data structure. Right?
basically any data structure. If you're familiar with the lambda calculus, this thing is effectively a version of lambda substitution. That's how it works. And there's this whole walkthrough tutorial kind of you can go through and interactively work with to get a feel for how these things work. You just walk through these things. And you say, how am I executing that stuff? Well, if you go over to this question mark, here's the default text manipulation. All of this stuff can be configured by a user to be how they particularly want it. The defaults are based on Emacs. These editors are basically Emacs editors in CodeMirror, but they're basically Emacs. And so this Control-X, Control-E is very similar to Cider. Control-X, Control-C is a similar kind of thing to what Cider is. And you can do Control-XJ to execute forms over on server, the JVM, and or an entire outer expression of the thing. So it's very similar to Cider in that regard. But you can mix. The other thing you can do is you can actually mix server and client-side code together, the execution. There's actually in when you install it, you will have a test directory, and in there's this business of you will see a mixed client server, and that will give you some examples of how you can mix the code from the client and server together. So there you go. I think I already talked about this a bit, so you can open this up and play around with inserting picture frames and then ordering them in various ways by changing the column and rows per, elements per row or column and stuff like that. So all of these things will be available and you can just sort of mess around with them. And then finally, here's just, this will be in the Saite overview document as well. That will be available with the installation. And it gives you a bit of a gallery of, rogues gallery, if you will, of stuff you can do, including these geocharts. Yeah, examples, examples where you can do zoom and pan, stuff like that. And again, all of this is, if you open up the main editor for it, there's a walkthrough that you can then basically recapitulate building all these things yourself by just going through these, the code and the descriptions of how to do it.
And it seems that you use here some color theme of yourself in addition to the usual Vega aesthetics, right?
Say that again?
I mean, the theme of the colors is different from the usual Vega and Vega Lite colors, right?
Some of it is. Yeah, some of these are, this is configurable too. These default colors, that's true. That's a configurable thing. I just default to some because that's what I like, but you can change it.
Yeah, and these defaults are part of your templating use, the way that you build things with your templates.
Yep, that's exactly right. Now these colors are picked basically by the IDL team, and I just use them because they tend to do a really good job of picking appropriate color schemes for that kind of stuff. All right, so that just gives you a little bit of an appetite. Like I say, there's Sharp Dev, Sharp Saite Dev on Zulip that we can, if you got questions and stuff and you want to ask me, that's a great place. We'll have recorded conversations on how to do different things. So, but we're in hackathon having to do with SARS-CoV-2. So let's take a look at an example, moving around with Datasets with that. And we have a couple tabs. This is daily by states. Then we have overview here on a geomap. This is just straight raw positive confirmed counts per state as of yesterday, I believe. I should probably have that in the tooltip, the latest day. This is a log version of exactly the same data. And if we go down here, this is per 100. This is by per capita, which is definitely a more useful, a little more informative, less misleading than just the raw counts. And this is a log of the per capita stuff. And so there you go. Some of these things are pretty taking off in kind of alarming rates. And just like in the previous document, you can open up the editor. So this is the main editor that created these things. Here's a new template based on a base template. This view base is a very handy thing. It encodes all of the required stuff in Vega and Vega Lite for a basic view. And then all we're going to do is create a geo version of this thing that has a different mark and some slightly different encodings. And then this is basic how you can insert these things. Each of these, this is the transformation using the templates. And again, that was in that template walkthrough overview. You can sort of really understand what this thing is doing if you go through that. But we can delete these pictures, and then I'll just quickly put them back up. But I'm just using Control-X, Control-D, and that's explained in that short overview over here. So I'll be able to see code execution, but here's all this frame stuff. Control-X, Control-D deletes things. Control-X, Control-I will insert things. And we're going to do that now, so we'll just quickly put these guys back up there. So I do a Control-X, Control-I. There we go, and then...
So this block of code returns an hidden, a data structure, a Clojure data structure, which is the equivalent of a Vega Lite spec, right?
It is a superset of a Vega Lite spec because it encodes also this user metadata information that is necessary that Interactive Data Labs people were wise enough to include in the Vega and Vega Lite specifications, where the idea is that there will be applications that need specific user metadata, usually for control purposes, and that's pretty much exactly what Saite uses it for. That control data includes all this stuff about how to order the rows and columns. So if I let's close this up. That's one of the things you can do is we can change this to column order, and this thing now will come down here, and these two will go up in the other spot. So that's how that is. And I guess I forgot to add the other one down here. And then you can do different, you can also change the numbers here. There's a lot of other stuff you can do, but that's all encoded in the user meta stuff, which is a piece of the specification that surrounds the Vega and Vega Lite spec. But that is specifically accounted for by the Interactive Data Lab folks who are the authors of Vega and Vega Lite. Also, they're the authors of D3. Okay, so so if we go over here, we've got a similar kind of thing, only this is just the increase per day over these month or so. And we can open this up and see that that's what we're doing. And if we go over here, it defaults to Mass, but we can put in like New York. And then we just do a Control-X, Control-I to update the thing. We'll get that update over here. Well, that's all kind of nice, but it might be nicer to have the cumulative positives as opposed, in addition to the increases per day. And that's what this chart does. So we take a look at that a little bit better. That's there you go. So you have an increase in positive. The increase is on a linear scale over here on the left. And then the positives, the cumulative positives is on a log scale on the right. And you can change that however you want as far as that goes. And that's given by this definition here, which is effectively a Vega Lite layer chart, which is, whoa, the Mac bit me. Yeah, so there's two, this is a layer chart. The overall thing is a layer chart, which has two line charts on top of one another, and that's what these two guys are. And so you can, and then you can stylize it in different ways. Like here's the Y scale here for the log on the positive, cumulative positive. And again, we can change this to say Massachusetts. And we get these updates. But that's kind of a pain in the sense that, well, you have to go and open up these main editors and fool around with the code. So a nicer thing is this, where what we've done is added a reactive component to the right panel picture frame. And now we can just do that by selecting things interactively. So it's pretty nice. Right, so there you go. And that is done, effectively it's the exact same chart as this, only we added a right panel to the picture frame, which again, in that the Saite overview document, you can look at in more detail. When you load the thing up, it describes how picture frames are organized and all that. And it basically
is that part of Vega Lite? The reactive? Okay.
No, this is Saite stuff. Just like LaTex is not part of Vega Lite. Yeah, that's stuff that Saite adds all around these visualization capabilities. So, and the key thing to this is this update daily right there. That's the function that actually gets called when you do the selection. And you said, well, where did that come from? Well, that has to be a client-side function. It can't be a server or anything like that. And that comes from this Clojure script code over here. And so here's the Mac got me again. So here we are. Maybe I'll stay off the pad for a second. So that's this function here. And then you register it with Saite down here, this add the symbol translate thing, so that the specs will understand where that is. So this is just straight Clojure script code, which you would use the Control-X, Control-E in order to run. And then the actual data wrangling code for the data sets is over in this tab. So it's coming from this COVID tracker data set, which is pretty good for the US. It's doesn't have data for any place else but the US. And so you can just execute all these things. A lot of this is just...
What does CLJ mean?
Say that again?
I see the CLJ tag.
Yes, yeah. This is intermixed code. So this is code that runs both on the client and the server, and the CLJ is effectively an indicator to the Saite machinery to take the enclosed form, so this def, deref, def, states URL, blah, blah, blah. It runs that over on the JVM and then returns the result, which is just a string, and assigns it to this client-side variable. And the same thing happens down here, only now we're doing some work on the JVM, grabbing data sets and fooling around with them, and then we assign it here to the client side. And the reason why it can be useful to do this because it can be nice to have the data sets after they're computed, to have the final results on the client side so that they're more readily available for the visualizations. So yeah, what's going on here is mixed code. You're mixing client and server side code together. And that's what that is.
Beautiful.
Yeah, and all of this stuff is mostly just machinery to translate between state names and state codes and Vega Lite IDs on states and the geo map, GeoJSON that the Vega Lite provides. So it's just all the data wrangling stuff over here. Yeah, and I guess that's about it. There is one other, there is this one final visualization down here that we didn't have. Up, you do Control-X, Control-I, and we'll get this really, this is basically all 50 states mapped on a linear scale for their increases per day. And you can see it's dominated by New York, so it'd be nice to maybe filter New York out. Update this thing. Why is this? Why can't I? All of a sudden I can't. Okay, there you go. This also has, a zoom and pan. And you can do more than that. I mean, maybe this. You can imagine what would really be nice. So here's just the New England states. But obviously it would be much nicer to, instead of again fooling with the editor, is to put a reactive component over here where you could select the states that you're interested in, or maybe select groups of states. And do it with these kind of buttons or reactive components, like we did up here with this thing. Yeah, so instead of messing around over here in the editor to do that, you would just have that done automatically. And I guess that's it. So there's.
Can I ask one more question?
Yes.
I understand that all these code blocks what they return is this superset of Vega Lite
Yes.
specification, and by Control X, Control I, you insert the visual result of these specifications.
Yep, into the tab body, yep.
But what if I want to see the specification itself as data?
You can do that. Again, all you got to do, any of these things over here, you can just execute. I have this blown up, so it's kind of hard to see. Because there's an output. It's kind of like the REPL output, like in a Saite thing. So if I come up here and I just put my cursor on true, and I do a Control X, Control E, and see down here, true gets printed out. And I can, this little button here will clear that output area. And then, so I can execute this whole thing. And I get effectively this entire specification down here.
Oh, perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, so this is the raw, not the raw, it's the complete finished specification that will then be used to visualize the chart, including all the control information in the user meta field. So there's a lot of this stuff is you can see. You can see. Oh, Jesus, it just the Mac kills me. There's a lot of this that is this. Here's the picture frame definition. This top comes from this top up here. The left is from the same left. Yeah, all of that stuff is in there.
All of that is how templates work, right?
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Exactly. That's exactly right. And again, you go through that walkthrough, a lot of that will become much clearer. Yeah.
Yeah. Wonderful.
So, I mean, if you just go back to that thing. Yeah, that's all in here.
Yeah, this one is maybe one of the most important tabs here, right? So it seems.
Yeah. Yeah, but it just goes through in pretty much detail. And also, let's see if you're over here. Yeah, it kind of goes along with the flow of the documentation and Hanami on this. So you go to Hanami, get this table of contents, go over here to templates and all this stuff. And in particular, it talks about the, where is it here? Yeah, there's like this whole walkthrough. And the other thing is, yes, transformation rules. Kind of useful to really understand at least the first three of these things. The third one is really just an implementation detail. Yeah, but again, if you go through this thing, you'll really get an idea of how all that works.
Wonderful.
And with that, I thank you guys for paying attention and actually being interested. And yeah, I turn it back over to Daniel.
Yeah, John, thank you so much for this. I feel that it was just a glimpse, but it is just enough to begin to explore. And I'm so curious to learn more now.
Yes. Yeah, and I'd be happy to answer questions that anybody has on more details.
Yeah. So thank you so much, and see you soon.
Thank you. Bye.